Out of your studio discography, who are some of the artists that you worked with, and some of the stuff that you're real proud about?
Wow. I got to work with, especially in the R&B world. I've been able to work with some true legends. In addition to Curtis, who I did work in the studio with quite a bit, and I produced a couple of songs with. But I produced the Shy Lights out of Chicago, Billy Paul, the 3 Degrees, Benny King. Benny King was, such a pro, such a gentleman. I mean, they all are in their own ways, because most of the people that I was working with were very seasoned artists, and they came up through a time where they knew what their role was, and nobody got in anybody's way, but there was still that back and forth communication. I think the records I'm most proud of, there was a gentleman named Vernon Garrett, who was like 67, 68 years old, and just has this amazing voice. And I didn't do a lot of blues records. I started out doing a lot of blues, and then I kind of got relieved from that. But he was one of the blues artists I had, and that record I just really, to this day, I still enjoy it. I mean, it just has all the elements, nice big band arrangements on it, great players. I mentioned earlier Bob Thompson, who, just we just found that we had this, from the first phone call that we had together, we had this whole synchronicity thing going. It's really hard to describe to people, and I won't even try and do that right now. But working with him was just such a joy, and we always knew what the other person was going to do before we did it. And it just made, all his records just really have a good spirit about them. Don Diego was another artist that I did. When I first met Don, his record label told me they needed a single. So I had a tune laying around, and I said, well, let me, flesh it out a little bit more, and we'll, and they're like, no, we need to have the record at mastering tomorrow. So I was like, well, where's Don? And they're like, we'll get him here in 10 minutes. So now he's playing to my demo, and we just did a quick mix on it, put it on the record, and it did turn out to be a good seller for him. So the record label came to me to do the entire second record. And that's a record where, when we were talking about Joseph earlier, I immediately brought him in on a couple of tracks, especially one that required upright bass, because there's no finer upright player in Atlanta. And there was another tune with Gerald Albright that I had Joseph play on. But that whole record, because Joseph, Gerald Albright, Kirk Whalum, it was another record that just kind of came together very easily, very nicely. Was radio, TV shows, a lot. The music has survived. And that's been 12, 13 years ago. So it was a great. It's a great feeling that sometimes when I cut on maybe even the Weather Channel and I hear one of those songs. And the fact that I got to write half of the record, that didn't hurt. That's a record that I'm very proud of. There's not too many artists that I've worked with that I've just not been proud of. I got to work with Jermaine Dupri when he did Criss Cross first record with Jump. And that was the first time I really saw a guy in that genre who had a great work ethic. I mean, he first one to arrive in the studio, he would leave with me in the evening, or with the engineer. But he just, no breaks, just go, go, go. And I learned a lot from him on that, on how he handled all that.
Mm-hmm.